which brings me to my next guest, Jacob Soboroff. Jacob has spent years on the ground in communities across the country, across the world, actually, telling so many stories, but this one in particular, the story of the cruelty and the human cost of Donald Trump's anti-immigrant program. Not as an abstraction, not through Washington punditry, but through the lived experiences of everyday Americans navigating it in real time. Now, as many of you have probably heard by now, I will be leaving this, my namesake weekend program in the next few months to host the 11th hour on weeknights and to track the midterm cycle as MS Now's new chief data reporter. And while I am excited for this new chapter, I'm departing with a heavy heart, knowing that I'm leaving a show that's given me so much and that's allowed me as a longtime reporter to center the voices of everyday Americans. But that work will continue because Jacob Soboroff will be taking over the show. I've known and worked with Jacob for years, and I could not ask for the show to be in better or steadier hands. Jacob Soboroff joins me now. Jacob, my friend, welcome to a place you're going to be spending a whole lot of time over the next few months, and I want to talk to you about that in just a few minutes. But I want to start with this issue of immigration. The New York Times data that I was just talking about shows that the busiest enforcement hubs, places like Miami and Dallas, aren't necessarily the ones dominating the headlines. Why is there such a disconnect between where the enforcement's actually happening and what we all think we're seeing?
I'm going to come back around to that in a second, Ali, but you made me emotional, and I can't just dive right into this. I want to say to you that I am so profoundly grateful to you for not only that beautiful introduction, but your friendship over my 11 years here and us working together. We are not just buddies, but you are a role model for me. The connection that you have forged with the viewers of this broadcast and this network and just everybody who was in your orbit. I had such an incredible time talking with your entire staff of this wonderful, wonderful show yesterday is second to none. And so I love you. I love this show. I love this network, and I'm so excited. We'll talk more about that. But
and I'm glad I'm leaving it in your hands
so much.
But you really are, you have for a long time, this is not new to you, studying this particular issue, this issue of immigration. You've written a book about it. You studied it in great detail in Donald Trump's first term. You've covered the separations, family separations. I don't know if even you thought it could get more cruel.
No, and I think that the way that this was laid out by you and your team is extraordinary because you know, before Donald Trump came back for the second term, I used to say mass deportation. Those signs that I saw on the floor of the convention as I reported from the Republican convention during the last presidential election is family separation by another name. But as you have so brilliantly stated here, it's not just family separation. It is abject cruelty. It is a violation of all of our civil rights and civil liberties. It is stripping away some of the basic fabric of American society in a way that, while I think if you look at this stuff closely, you understand that this is where this was headed. It has gone to a degree that I don't think perhaps many Americans did expect when they saw those signs and they saw those balloons dropping with Donald Trump in that celebratory nature. And the reality of this is it is now starting to play out below the surface, as they have always intended, inside jails. Local jails, prisons around the country, where in many cases people may not get their due process rights afforded to them under the Constitution of the United States. We may see pre-trial, pre-conviction deportations of people who haven't had a chance to go through the system, and that is what they have always wanted to do. They used the cruelty that you're looking at on the left-hand side of your screen as an excuse to go in and do this under the radar, and that's exactly where we are in this moment today. Kristi Noem and her jet and Corey Lewandowski and all the rest of it might be on the way out, but Markwayne Mullin is just another face for the same exact strategies that Stephen Miller has always wanted to effectuate in this country.
This story of immigration is not disconnected from the story of oligarchy and big money that we follow very closely. We know that for-profit prisons have profited handsomely from Donald Trump's deportation campaign. In fact, just this last month, one of the companies that I was talking about that you know well, CoreCivic, held its quarterly earnings call, and it laid out just how much money it's making along with its expectations for the coming year. I want to play a quick clip from that call with CoreCivic's CEO, Patrick Swindle, speaking about this.
ICE was our first customer 43 years ago and has been our largest customer for over a decade. As we continue to look for additional ways to meet our government partners' needs, We believe we can make available substantial capacity to meet future demand. We've informed ICE that we could provide it with nearly 13,000 additional beds. And this does not include additional capacity we may be able to provide through other means.
Help me with that, Jacob. When you hear the CEO talking about expanding capacity to meet future needs, what does that tell you about the role of profit and investor expectations in shaping what we think shouldn't probably be policy that's shaped by them?
That the current state of the American immigration system is on its way to being supersized, and that is an immigration system that is defined largely by for-profit immigration detention. And I have been inside one of the most notorious ICE detention facilities, for-profit, run not by CoreCivic, but one of the other large companies, the GEO Group, the Adelanto ICE detention facility in the high desert here outside of Los Angeles, just a couple hours away. Hop in your car and you drive up there, as I did with Lindsay Kozlowski from the Immigrant Defenders Law Center during the first Trump term. And inside, what I saw is what was reflected inside Inspector General reports. Just deplorable conditions. I saw a man curled up in a fetal position in solitary confinement. These Inspector General reports talk about people hanging themselves, making makeshift nooses. You already talked about a suicide at a time when death in ICE custody is at record levels, just in the course of the very recent past here. And so we've heard these stories before. I have seen what it has looked like inside these facilities. And now, with profit driving the expansion of all of this, with this so-called big, beautiful bill, putting literally unprecedented amounts of money in the hands of this immigration apparatus, there will only be more of it in more places, and it will only become more deadly.
You know, we've noted that Kristi Noem is gone from the scene. Markwayne Mullin is saying to some people the right things, like we're going to have judicial warrants or whatever the case is. Stephen Miller is the architect of this thing. He's still there.
Yeah. Stephen Miller, in the first Trump term, Allie, not only wanted to separate the 5,500 children from their parents that they deliberately did in that family separation policy that was deemed, don't take it from me, take it from the Republican-appointed judge who called it one of the most shameful chapters in the history of our country. Physicians for Human Rights, which won a Nobel Peace Prize, said it met the United Nations definition of torture, and the American Academy of Pediatrics called it government-sanctioned child abuse. He wanted to separate 25,000 children from their parents, not 5,500 before it was stopped by people all around the country and around the world. And that, to me, ultimately, I think, was one of the most instructive things that you said earlier in this broadcast, which is Donald Trump is not backing away from this because of some moral opposition. This is a repeat. This is deja vu from the first Trump term. When he stopped the family separation policy, as Kirstjen Nielsen stood behind him, the person who effectuated it by signing option 3 on the decision memo, he didn't say, whoa, I'm morally opposed. He said, I didn't like the sight and the feeling of the families being separated. Didn't look good on TV, didn't look good in that audio from ProPublica that Ginger Thompson found. But Stephen Miller was still there, and they still tried to find ways to do it below the radar. And now we're back doing it again, and Stephen Miller hasn't gone anywhere.
Jacob, viewers of this show are going to get to know you real well very soon, but I want to just I want to give them one little piece of insight into why you do what you do. It was 2022. It was the first day you and I were together in Ukraine. Let's play a little of this conversation that you and I had. One of the things that my viewers are often curious about is how you all end up here. What motivates you to run toward danger?
It's the people. For me, it's always the people. In the 2.5 weeks that I've been here, you get to talk to people from the East that are sleeping in Red Cross tents at the train station. I got to spend time with people who survived the Holocaust only to flee another foreign invasion, people serving hot meals to people all around the country. It's through those stories, and not just the politics or the negotiations or the familiar faces, that I think, for me, it makes us all worth coming to do.
Jacob, that's your lens, right? That's your lens is not Washington. Your lens is not power. It's people. Everywhere you go in the world, you're reporting on people and how they're affected by stories.
It is as I said, it's an honor to follow in your footsteps because I feel like you do this better than anyone, Ali. For me, being a part of this place has always been about the people, not about the politics. And I'm talking about you and my colleagues here at MS, and I'm talking about our audience, the most engaged audience, the most extraordinary people that I've ever met in my career in broadcasting, but also the people that we cover who allow us to enter their lives oftentimes on the worst day. And it is a profound privilege and honor. And for me, whether it was in Ukraine with you, or in Haiti, or in Guatemala, or in Greenland, or in Mexico, or in so many places around the United States of America, to be able to come face to face with people. For me, on a voting line sometimes. It might be down on the border other days. For a while, it was on the plaza at the Today Show. I love human beings. And to have 3 hours on Saturday and 3 hours on Sunday to spend time connecting with them is the biggest blessing that I could ask for, and I mean that sincerely.